Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a beautiful day for the Pirate Broadcast. We got a new pirate in the house. Nick, what's going on?
What's up, Russ? How you doing, buddy? I'm so excited to be here. You have no idea.
I'm equally excited. Nick is known as, I'm just going to give you a name here, the $1 Million Mouth, right? So I see the man for radio, the broadcast with the most. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to have a great time. You know, it's Thanksgiving in the US, and I just really wanted to knock something down and have a good conversation with you and just kind of have a good time and, tell a few interesting stories. So how did we actually connect? I want to talk to about the person we were talking about earlier, just to give him a shout out. So
Absolutely. It's a long, strange trip the last 6 months for me, but it all started when a guy named Josh Tapp from Idaho reached out to me and said, "You do videos?
Can you do videos?
Can you do videos?" And then now I'm here, on the Pirate Broadcast, and this is the highlight of my. I'm very thankful to be here on American Thanksgiving.
Well, it's funny because you've been sailing for years. You were in the industry to sail for a little while, and so that's an interesting backstory that I'm sure that are layers of stories that could be told. But we may not go into all of them today. So what's your background and history in the with the radio business? Tell us the story. Tell us the origin.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Montreal, and this is a true story, Russ. I knew two things when I was 8 years old. I vividly remember this. One was I was going to work in radio, and the other was I hated winter. And everything I did was to get into radio. I went to Humber College in Toronto for radio, worked in radio and TV in Toronto for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then one day someone said to me, "Can you do that radio thing, but on a stage?" And I said, "Of course." And that started a 20-year career in the cruise ship industry. Actually lived on ships for about a decade. And I was a pitch guy. So I would get on stage and pitch all the duty-free products. Yeah. And I've got about 20,000 hours of live presenting to about 500 people at a time. So interesting stories there.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was a musician playing night after night and just, being a house band and playing and loving it. And, sometimes there'd be, 3,000 people and you just kind of like just the energy of the crowd and everything going on. And at the same time, you're doing it every single night, traveling and you got to do things. And it's crazy to think, okay, I did that for, 20 years and then you get out of it and you think, wow, and now I got to figure out what I got to do next. So now what's the focus and attention of Nick? What are you working on? What are you focused on the next year?
So I'm figuring it out and I'm okay with that. I got out of the business just because it was, it was a fun business and I cherish every minute, but it was a lot of travel and, I'm flying all over the globe, especially when I got into management. So I'm a big guy in those little airplanes. Again, Josh one day reached out to me by fluke and said, "Hey, I see you do a lot of videos," because I was the face of a lot of the in-cabin television on these cruise lines. And he said, "Hey, can you do something for a funnel?" And I said, "You mean a sales funnel? I'm a sales guy." No, a click funnel. I said, "What's a click funnel?"
What's a click funnel?
What's a click funnel? And I started doing.
For those that don't know click funnels, the head click funnel is Russell Brunson. So it's like you can look him up and follow his stuff. It's amazing products and services, but it's a whole different world. So
it's contemporary marketing, right? So if you're watching something on YouTube, what's that ad before, and how do we hook you in, right, to kind of direct you maybe somewhere else? So I started doing a couple of videos, and I thought, okay, now I guess I'm just doing pitch videos for people, being like a brand ambassador. But another thing Josh said, this smart kid, I shouldn't call him a kid, I'm kidding, but smart gentleman. And he kept saying, listen what the market wants. And as I started talking to more entrepreneurs and business owners, what they really wanted was the sales strategy. And I would put eyes on so many products. And
Mhm.
how do I differentiate? If I'm going to talk about 60 products in 60 minutes, how do I make them all different if a lot of them are kind of the same?
Yeah.
So, I got into some consulting, and then everything changed about a month ago. I started putting videos on LinkedIn, just stuff in my little mini studio, these short hooky videos, and they've kind of taken on a life of their own. So now I'm kind of creating content for people on, sales development, sales process, but the pitch is really what I focus on because of all those hours of pitching. And everyone talks about lead generation or closing, and obviously they're critical, but everyone forgets about the presentation, right? How do you take everything that Russ has done and
Yeah.
distill that down to 45 seconds?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to know what that is. It keeps me up at night. So we have some questions already. So Marissa says you definitely have a radio voice. So, and she asks, the question she asks is, have you ever pitched a product or service that made you cringe?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's another reason too that I really like what I'm doing now because I can really kind of pick and choose. I have the authority for the first time to say no, and that's a big deal for me. And I think it's one thing to pitch something, but if it was something I wasn't crazy about, I could kind of redirect people and say, well, you know what, that's a great option, but you might want to consider this too, and then really try and
Yeah.
push them in a different direction. But there's a lot of power in having 500 people who are immediately trusting you because you're the authority on stage.
Mhm.
And part of the reason that I'd like to think that I had success was because I had that Canadian upbringing, and there's an authenticity to how we present, especially when it comes to sales. It's a very different sales process in Canada, at least when I was coming up, than it is in the US. And when people have that instant trust in you, I had to sleep at night, right? So I was very careful to make sure that I was helping people get the right products for what they wanted, as opposed to maybe what would have been best for me at that moment.
Here's a tough question, Nick. What's the most unique product you ever pitched?
I'll tell you what one of my favorites is: Jamaican Blue Mountain Coffee. And
Jamaican Blue Mountain Coffee.
it's
That
one of the
sounds
best.
awesome.
It's the way the mineral content at 5,000 feet in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. And the reason that you haven't heard of it, or if you can find it in the States, it's been sitting there for a while, is that so much of it is pre-sold to the Japanese market because
Oh,
it's
wow.
so good and there's a limited harvest. So, I'd always, and that's kind of how I would, get people in, is I wouldn't start with a high-end Swiss watch, for example. But that was one of the best deals in the Caribbean duty free, was like Swiss watches. But I'd get people so excited to buy the coffee, and they would go in droves to buy coffee, right? And then they'd be like, "Wow, Nick gave me this great advice. So, okay, what's in the next port?" And I'd say, "Well, in Mexico, you got to get the Mexican vanilla, but you got to get it from this particular store. Make sure it's not outside, sitting in the sun, and you want it without alcohol. And here's all the reasons why." So,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah.
It's funny. Marissa asks, do you use the phone in your sales strategy?
The what?
ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels. No, the phone.
Oh,
Yeah,
the phone?
a phone.
A phone in my sales strategy.
Yeah.
When I use my phone, I'm going to start putting more kind of just handheld videos. I had this little, I started when I was putting these videos up on LinkedIn. People started asking me, how do you do it? Like, you kind of demystify how to actually create content. And I've always been on camera, and that's not a problem for me, but I've never lit and shot. And also I don't really want to do that stuff. So what's the lowest barrier to entry that's going to cost the least amount of money?
Yeah.
I put up a video and I said, what do you guys, these people that I'm interacting with on LinkedIn, what do you want? And they're like, how do you do the video? So I started doing a series of, like, my whole studio setup is like $300. And then I use these really inexpensive tools for post-production and subtitles and stuff. So, it's been
We should
fun.
get together and do a master class on that. So
I'll do anything with you, Russ. I'm just happy to be a pirate now. When do I get my eye patch? Does that come in the mail, or?
Yeah, we'll get your details, and we'll get you a buy patch. We'll get a buy patch going. So Silver Fox DJ's here. Silver Fox DJ. Love the fact that and Angie's in the house today. Howard Kaufman. Vilas Expos.
Yeah, bring back the Expos. It's funny. Real quick, growing up in Montreal, I mean, it's the home of the Montreal Canadiens, right? If you know hockey, I mean, they're the New York Yankees of hockey, but better. If you can't win Stanley Cup, they're not in Toronto, they're in Montreal. But I was actually a bigger Expos fan growing up. And part of the reason I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but real quick, my uncle moved to Arizona, which is part of the reason how I wound up here. But he had a buddy who used to get housing for the Expos. So I was 13 years old and I was like mowing the lawn and cleaning the pool out for Larry Walker and John Vanderwall and Jeff Fry. So they'd get me tickets and the Expos were always up and down, but I'd be sitting behind home plate, this 13-year-old kid by himself with all the wives and kids of the Expos.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So I was a bigger Expos fan than I was a Montreal Canadiens fan. Don't tell anyone in Montreal though. They'll take away my passport.
Oh man, in Montreal is a unique individual place as well. So I have not yet ventured over to Montreal, but I love Toronto, love Vancouver, BC, and spent some time in the west coast of BC. But it's really fun to think about how that molded you as an individual and one day maybe come back, you can make bank and create that and be like Gary Vee and buy a team, right?
Yeah, Gary wants to buy the Jets. I want to bring back the Expos. So there you go. Real quick though, what was really had such an impression on me, and I didn't realize how much until recently. Montreal's a French city. I mean, it's a European city. Yeah. Imagine, if Paris was in Scandinavia. That's kind of the best way that I can put it together for people. Yeah. But when you grow up in a European culture, but you're in a North American market, it just gave me everything I've done is just a little bit different. And I think part of the reason too that, I love using words and presenting and taking and pitching stuff is French is a beautiful language, right? And they teach you how to speak beautifully about things. Well, it's not that that's just what they do. Yeah. Right. So when you have that, when you're lucky enough to come up with that, I found it's always given me a distinct advantage, especially in the American market.
Well, and I think it really trains you to speak a certain way, and have some, like you said, speak beautifully, and have that rhythm and just that intent in when you're describing things and when you're looking at things and way you're looking at life as well,
100%.
It's ironic that you end up in Phoenix in Arizona, that after your uncle moved around and got down here and everything else that goes along with it. But I think the desert has a certain flair to it. Phoenix in itself may not necessarily have everything for everyone. And the desert is kind of a place to go around here that a lot of people enjoy. And it's not for everyone, like Montreal and is a unique individual place. And that's what makes us unique and individual as people. So what's the biggest influence you've received now that you're out of the cruise lines and, Josh has kind of led you down this ClickFunnels path and this online thing, and you're doing some amazing content creation on LinkedIn. And so where do you see Nick going in the next 12, 18 months? I mean, what's your initial goals and thoughts on what's going to take place and where you want to fit in?
So, I think if I look back and if 25 years ago, I would have said, hey, here's what you can do in the next 25 years, it'd be like radio, cruise ships. What? How's that possible? So I think I've always tried to be, water just flowing around rock. And I think for me, I love creating content and people are like, hey, can you sell for us? Can you train our sales team? Can you help us with our presentation? And I love doing that, but I love making the content. And, everyone's like, okay, well, you need a podcast, you need a YouTube channel, you need, and these things are coming because if I can make a living just helping people with sales advice and sales hacks, and for me, it's fun, right? Like people be like, hey, what are you doing for lead generation? And I'm like, well, if I really want to meet someone on LinkedIn, I'll take a quick little video on Loom and I'll drop it in there, right? It just shows a thumbnail of me actually speaking. And, that's a hack. Okay, how do you do that, Nick? Well, it's super easy. You do ABC. So just kind of talking about, what the latest trends are in sales. And I mean, there's a ton of great sales and marketing content out there, but then I get people reach out to me and I'm like, you are so interesting. How this conversation that you and I are having right now, people need to hear this, right? Yeah. So I think there's definitely, that's partially the path that this is going to go down. And, maybe potentially I could be everyone's second favorite podcast after the Pirate Broadcast.
Hey, I don't mind drafting like NASCAR. Yeah, we can swap seats any day, Nick. It's like, hey, the reality is there's so much opportunity out there, and especially in the online world where it's you pick up something and you create something out of nothing, and you have an opportunity to either pitch it, play it, create it. Content creation is huge opportunity because right now, while we're all, going through this pandemic together, video, I started the Pirate Broadcast, the Pirate Syndicate long before the pandemic came on board, and it's just kind of exploded. And now I'm producing shows for other people and other organizations and doing a lot of different creative things that I can see continuing to grow and explode. And as people get familiar with the technology and they get familiar with the content creation, it's going to be like blogs of the last 10 years and just continue to grow in that area. And the beautiful thing about doing video and on this kind of format is then you could take it, create a podcast out of it. That's another bunch of content. Yep. And you can do transcriptions, and that's another bunch of content. And you can just kind of grow and flow, and then break it up into micro content and build out another layer of it. So it's amazing to watch and evolve this thing.
Yeah, it's exciting. And, I think too, for me though, is just because I've done so much over the years with content, whether it's, live content on a stage or on in-cabin television for the cruise lines, I just want it to be good. Like I know there's a lot, I'll talk to a lot of solopreneurs. That's a lot of what I've been doing these days. And, I tell them, I'm like, tell me what you do. And they'll tell me, and I'm like, I don't understand. Tell me again what you do. And I still don't understand. Tell me again what you do. And, there's a lot that I can give back, but then I also, this is what keeps me up at night, Russ. I don't want to ever feel like I'm mailing it in. Not that I would, but that's my fear is can I make really good content all the time? I know I have all these ideas and I know I can help people, grow their business and get traction, but how do I make sure it's always good?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the big question for me. So,
yeah, that is a huge question. And it's a huge opportunity because you're always improving, always polishing the stone and making it work a little bit, just looking at it a little differently and a new perspective. So what's Nick's biggest challenge right now today?
Figuring out what I'm going to do.
Who is Nick? Explain it to me.
No, because it's also, I want to commit to one thing and be one thing. And that's one thing I've learned. I put out a video recently on LinkedIn, and I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting all day. That's what I do. I jump in and out, but I always make sure I've got at least 15 seconds to look at someone's LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
And as I looked at people's LinkedIn profiles, I'm like, I don't understand what you do. And if I can't, as a pitch guy, figure out what Russ does, we got a problem. Because we like to fantasize that people are going to take 10 minutes going through our profile and looking at all our accreditations and what we've done. Well, you got 15 seconds. Yeah. Where are you from? What do you do? Right. Yeah. So you can be one thing. Now, that's on LinkedIn, but that's the business world that I, swim in. I spend half my day on LinkedIn. So you can be one thing. So what's that one thing? I'd love to say content creator, but then at the same time, someone's like, hey, well, here's a boatload of money, Nick. Can you come train our sales team? Well, okay, I'm a sales trainer now. So it's balancing that, and again, it's that Montreal thing, right? In my mind, I'm an artist, right? Whatever the content is, even if it's a sales presentation, that's theater to me, right? And
Yeah.
I have to explain to people growing up in Montreal, like we were brought up with like the love of architecture and museums, and people in Phoenix look at me like, "What architect?" And I'm joking, but to me, it's the creative process and what are you actually putting out there. So, but I think this is one thing that has been established is that there will be consistent video or content, and I will endeavor to make sure that it's really good, or else I'll stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I encourage you to continue to pursue theater, art, creativity, architecture, design, speaking those words, the magic words and the secret sauce that make people move. It's really an art, and it's really a process that you have to develop. And I've been in advertising. I got into advertising in 1985. So I've been in technology, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to do a lot of different things. So it's a lot of diversity in my life, and it's the same thing. It's like, okay, what do I want to do now? It's like a chapter in the book of life. You turn the page and you say, okay, I'm going to do something new. I'm going to create myself and develop skills and articulate these ideas out to other people. So and meeting people like you and having these conversations in the morning is something that I really look forward to and I thrive in. And just being able to say, okay, well, what does that open the door to? What opportunities does that look like? And it sounds like you're doing much the same thing. It's like content creation and be open to opportunities, be open for that thing, that next big thing, next big idea to arrive. So it's very cool to hear that. So.
Absolutely.
I want to give a shout out Silver Fox DJ. Darlene says, love the energy and passion, Nick. And then Kenyatta's in the house, and she's doing some work. Russ Hedge, great info, Nick. We need to chat. He just launched a book. He just had a book launch. He says, hi, Russ and Nick. Nick Gimmel. Nick is a Canadian. I got your package, Nick. Give a shout out to Nick. He owns Pipe Dream Solution, where he's helping individuals in the oil and gas industry. He's doing some great work with that. He could probably, he's got a couple of programs he's launching, so he probably could always, I think he could use some help with some content. We're developing a few projects together, so look out for Nick. He's an awesome individual that you need to connect with. And if you're not connected to Nick, get connected to Nick. So LinkedIn, you're hanging out on LinkedIn. Any other place that you want to broadcast and share your content?
Right now it's LinkedIn, for sure. And please connect with me. I would love that. I just mentioned that it's from this, so that I'll for sure. I mean, I add pretty much everybody anyway, except people like trying to sell me crypto. There's a lot.
You want the Forex team hitting you up?
I've got a website which is terrible. We're reworking it, but salespitching.com is there. And then actually, so Josh Tapp from the Lucky Titan is helping me launch my podcast next week, probably week and a half, and that'll be the Sales Pitching Podcast. So just be on the lookout for that. But yeah, happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. That's I love it. And I'll tell you why I love it so much, Russ. I know we're wrapping up here, but every day on Embarkation Day, I'd be in Miami or Baltimore or Seattle, and most people would, that was kind of as close as you had to a day off for a lot of people that worked on the ship. And I did not want to be in my cabin. I wanted to be on the gangway saying, welcome aboard. Where are you from? Welcome aboard. Where are you visiting from? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited you're here, right? I've
never been there. I wanted to go there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another story too for another day, but
we'll have you back on, Nick, man. It's an adventure. And I just, this is the beauty of it is we can connect online, build a relationship. There's a lot of people that you probably met already that, if you showed up in their city, you'd get together and hang out and do some great things together. And it's like, holy cow, there's so many people out there that I want to meet or I find fascinating. I want to have a long conversation with and get to know them. And that's what I love about LinkedIn is the fact that it's so friendly. in a lot of respects, and I've met so many people that are just amazing individuals that, and like yourself, I mentioned Todd Hartley. I had him on the podcast, and he actually runs Wire Buzz that does video work for Tony Robbins. It's like he has some big clients that doing video work for, and he's over here in Phoenix. So, this little circle of friends. Howard Kaufman is another one. He owns a company that does oral. He does CBD mouthwash and stuff. Kenyatta, who's in the room, she's right down there. Well, she's in Phoenix as well. Another awesome individual that we've done some work with, and she's a pirate. So all of these individuals, there's probably a good cross section of people that we can get you introduced to and have some fun with. So
100%. I love to meet people. That's what I do.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up a little bit about the online world and content creation in general. I've been doing content and radio and doing a lot of content creation over the years. And so what do you see in your world right now that people are really asking for?
So I think a lot of people realize they need to start creating content, or that needs to be part of their marketing or sales strategy. They don't know how, or it's intimidating, right? So how do you kind of demystify that? And it was scary for me. I mean, people are like, "Oh, Nick, it's easy for you. You got all the experience." But when I first started putting videos out on LinkedIn, I mean, I have CEOs of cruise lines that are, connected to me. And am I prepared to, be a little tongue in cheek and have a little bit of fun and have these people see that, you know? So just, listen, I'm a Gary V soldier, and, he kept saying content. And you know what? He's right. And the more content I put out, the bigger my network gets, and the more, people want to talk or have opportunities or stuff we can collaborate on. So
yeah,
just do it that first time. And it's going to be scary.
Yeah.
First time I was on a cruise ship and they rolled me out on the stage, and this is a longer story, but all I see is the two spotlights, and there's 1,100 people in that room. Yeah. And I remember, I'll never forget how everyone must see how much I'm shaking, right? But you just got to do it. Take the step and the ledge will appear.
That's a big step between the being behind a microphone and a spotlight, right?
Okay, sorry, I know we're wrapping up. I got to tell you this story quick.
No, tell the story. We got time.
Okay, so I get on the ship.
I'm the pirate captain here.
So
this is radio. We're not going to go off to the spot.
Okay, I was on the Nordic Empress, which was a Royal Caribbean ship. It was the year 2000, and it was my first time on a ship. And it was a 3 and 4 day cycle. So the 4 days, and we were docked out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. The 4 day was like American charters, so corporations coming in for a 4 day junket. The 3 day they sold to the local Puerto Ricans as a weekend getaway. And I went to the cruise director and I said, "Hey, I got to go talk about what I'm talking about today, in the Welcome Aboard show." And he said, "You can't." I said, "Why not? I just did on the 4 day." He said, "Yeah, that was Americans. These were all Puerto Ricans. Do you speak Spanish?" I said, "I don't." He said, "Then you can't go on." I said, "Well, it's in my contract. What am I going to tell my aunt?" He goes, "You're not going on." So I went to the guest services desk and I found one of the pursers, and she was from Chile. And I said, "Look, I speak French. Here's a script. Can you translate this phonetically into Spanish for me? And I'm going to try and memorize it." She goes, "You're crazy." So she did. I spent 4 hours pacing around my little cabin, which was the size of a bathroom, and memorizing this phonetically in Spanish. So I go backstage before the show and I said, "Hey, Dan," I still remember his name, Dan. I said, "Okay, I'm ready." He goes, "Oh, you learned Spanish?" I said, "Well, okay." And I busted out this script. And he goes, "Okay, go, you go. You are a brave man." That's not exactly what he said, but he goes, "You're very brave." I get on stage and it's silence. And I remember, I'll never forget, my arm, it just felt like it was a chicken wing, just flapping all over the place. And I bust out, "Lo siento por mi poco español, pero estoy aprendiendo. Soy canadiense." I'm learning Spanish. Forgive me. I'm Canadian. I don't really speak Spanish. Standing ovation. They were so excited that I was trying.
Yeah.
And I didn't even get through the rest of what I was doing, but I walk off the stage And the cruise director goes, "What the bleep, bleep, bleep did you say to them? Write that down for me. I want that now." So, I mean, after that, what couldn't I do after that?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. 10 foot tall and bulletproof, man. 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And you're saying, here I am. Nick is on the stage.
Yeah, the problem was, though, after that, all the Puerto Ricans came up to me and they're like, talk to me in Spanish. And I'm like, I really don't speak Spanish. They didn't believe me. And I guess with the French English accent, they're like, no, you're from Brazil. You're a Brazilian speaking Spanish. Right? That's I guess how it sounded. So I don't know.
That is brilliant. That is a great story. Thank you so much for being here, Nick. I really appreciate the fact that you're here, and it's icing on the cake that you're here in Arizona, and we can actually connect someday in the future.
That's going to happen.
Yeah. And there's so many people that we can connect and introduce you to, and, cross connect. And we already know, I'm sure, a lot of the same people. So it's one of those things. It's just an amazing adventure when you discover a new pirate and have new friends and new faces and everything that goes along with it. So I just want to give a shout out.
Actually had ship experience.
Yeah. And as someone that is actually, what's ironic is that when you broadcast without permission, no permission needed, you're called a pirate broadcaster in the radio business. The FCC says, hey, if you don't have a license, you're a pirate broadcaster. And so it originally never started out with the ship idea, because I get seasick. I go out salmon fishing or something offshore. It's like I'm chumming. It's like it's bad. It's like, all right. However, I like the idea of pirate. I've always been somebody that works outside the box and kind of pushes the boundaries, and doesn't really follow all the rules. And so it's really kind of a thing that just landed really well, and it's just been taken off, and having a lot of fun with it. So
amazing. Well, you're great, Russ. And I got a masterclass. I was listening to the podcast you did, I think last week, with Tiffany Youngren.
Yeah.
And if you want a masterclass in podcasting or creating a podcast, listening to you two essentially interview each other.
Yeah.
That was great. If you missed that one, people, please go listen to that. That was amazing. Tiffany's fantastic.
Yeah, she's an awesome individual. Just like yourself, Nick. Thank you so much. Everyone in the U.S., I wish you, I'll be back on the show tomorrow for Thanksgiving episode. I got some treats that I'm going to be putting out there. I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to spend time, stay safe, be well, and all the things that you're going on in the world today. Just take care of yourself. Just do what you can to be the very best you can, and just enjoy the time you got together with your family and your friends and everything that's going on around us. So, Nick, it's a pleasure. I look forward to next steps in any adventure that we can create together and in the pirate community. And as you know, everyone, kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day. Don't go away. Bye. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.